From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Friday, November the 22nd, 2024. An IDF soldier was killed during fighting in Gaza against terror group Hamas yesterday. He is 19-year-old Staff Sergeant Ron Epstein. Israeli troops continue operating in Gaza, eliminating terrorists and terror infrastructure, including, the IDF said, in an airstrike today, hitting 5 Hamas terrorists who participated in the October 7th onslaught. And Israeli troops continue battling terror group Hezbollah in Lebanon amid ongoing rocket and drone attacks fired by the terror group at Israel, including today dozens of rockets fired at the Galilee and the Haifa area. Some were intercepted, others fell in open areas. The IDF continuing to respond, hitting terror targets in Lebanon, including dozens of rocket launchers, it said, and shared today that Israeli fighter jets completed a series of hits on headquarters used by Hezbollah in Beirut. Carrying out the airstrikes, it said, after many steps were taken to reduce the chance of harming civilians, including advanced warnings for the evacuation of the population in the area. Also last night, a ballistic missile was fired at the area of the Dead Sea. The IDF said approaching from Yemen toward Israeli territory. It was intercepted by Israel's Air Force prior to crossing into Israel. Well, more response now to the International Criminal Court's decision yesterday to issue arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant over the war in Gaza. U.S. President Joe Biden called the ICC decision outrageous. In a statement from the White House yesterday evening, the president wrote, "Let me be clear once again, whatever the ICC might imply, there is no equivalence, none, between Israel and Hamas. We will always stand with Israel against threats to its security." The leaders of the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations, Harriet Schleifer and William Daroff, said yesterday the ICC will not be able to recover from the gross act of bias, moral relativism, and Holocaust inversion to which it has put its name, saying Israel's war against the Hamas terror army, the butchers of 1,200 Israelis, and the captors of 101 hostages must and will continue until its war aims are met. This fight is justified in the name of the defense of civilians, the redemption of the hostages, and the campaign against terrorism worldwide, calling on all foreign governments to immediately reject this farcical action by affirming that their countries will not enforce these specious warrants. Among the other countries that have rejected the ICC decision alongside the United States, the American Jewish Committee noted and thanked Paraguay, Argentina, Czechia, Hungary, Austria, and Bulgaria, saying these countries have shown outstanding moral clarity on the ICC warrants and all nations should follow their lead. The leaders of the Conference of Presidents yesterday also commended the U.S. Senate for, it wrote, its overwhelming rejection of proposed measures to ban critical weapon sales to Israel during its existential fight against Iran and its terrorist proxies. The resolutions to block the sale of weapons to Israel were introduced by Senator Bernie Sanders and went to a vote Wednesday night. Ahead of the vote, the conference, along with the Anti-Defamation League and the American Jewish Committee and other Jewish groups, had urged members of the U.S. Senate to support President Biden's proposed arms sales to Israel by voting against the resolutions. The American Jewish Committee saying Sanders' misguided and dangerous effort to deny Israel vital assistance is likely to fail because America recognizes the importance of supporting its strategic ally. Still, every time he tries to cut funds and limit Israel's ability to defend itself against Iranian-backed terrorists on 7 fronts, he emboldens the very terrorists who seek to destroy both Israel and the United States. The resolutions were rejected by all Republican senators and the majority of Democratic senators in votes of 79 to 18, regarding blocking the sale of tank rounds to Israel, 78 to 19 blocking a sale of high explosive mortar rounds, and 80 to 17 regarding blocking a sale of joint direct attack munitions to Israel. The conference writing this bipartisan vote reinforces the United States' steadfast commitment to Israel's security and underscores the profound American support for its closest ally in the Middle East. Taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Friday, November the 22nd. Live Shabbat services are coming up at 6 o'clock from New York City's Central Synagogue, followed by Shabbat services from the Hampton Synagogue. At 8:30, part 2 of Justin Pine's Sit Down with Rabbi Irving Yitz Greenberg, discussing the Jewish approach to transforming society. At 9:30, part 2 of Abigail Pogrebin's conversation with Joshua Leifer. At 10, David Harris speaks to Bernard-Henri Lévy about his book, Israel Alone. And at 10:30, a replay from the Hampton Synagogue, followed by a replay from Central. And coming up next, it's a look at this week's Torah Portion. And that's the JBS News Update for Friday, November the 22nd, 2024. I'm Teisha Bader. Shabbat Shalom. Am Yisrael Chai.